Hey, what's up, YouTube fans? So what I wanted to talk about in this video, right, is how the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, as they're commonly called, right, which are commonly used as, supposed proof of things like Jesus' resurrection, mainstream historians now consider these Gospels to not actually have been written by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, right? Which will come as a surprise to any of you who, have just like been spoon-fed what they told you in like church or Christian school, if you go to a Christian school. But there's actually strong historical evidence for thinking that the narratives commonly attributed to Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were not actually written by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So what are some of the pieces of evidence? So first, they are all internally anonymous, right? So even though each of them is called the gospel according to Matthew, the gospel according to Mark, the gospel according to, even though they're called that, the texts themselves speak in the third person, right? Never claiming to be Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, never even claiming to be eyewitnesses, right? And even in instances where they talk about even in instances where they talk about the person that it's attributed to, right? So they talk about themselves, if it actually was them, they still speak in the third person, right? And never even claim to be eyewitnesses, right? As opposed to maybe they just heard this from someone else, who heard it from someone else, who heard it from someone else, who heard it from someone else. So that's the first piece of evidence. Second piece of evidence, all of the earliest instances we know of someone attesting to these Gospels, like quoting them, right? They are not, the names are not attached to them, right? So Justin Martyr, right, is the first person known to have quoted these Gospels by but he does not refer to them by the names Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, right? It's not until about 30 years later, around the end of the 2nd century, that we first have the names attached to them, when Ignatius, not Ignatius, Irenaeus, Irenaeus around 180 AD, right? He refers to them by these names, right? So not till towards the end of the 2nd century, right? Long after Jesus had already died, right? And long after the first known instances of someone referring to these Gospels, only then do the names become attached, right? And so now mainstream New Testament scholars that are not Christian generally tend to think that the Gospels commonly attributed to Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were not actually written by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, right? And were not even written by eyewitnesses. They were just written by someone who heard the story from someone else, who heard the story from someone else. So basically stories were being passed around, right? Which were embellished, a lot of, mythology involved, right? And then someone wrote it down, not an eyewitness, only later are names attached to them, right? All right, that's all for now. See you guys.